So South Africa's biggest political story this week didn't end with a prison sentence. It started with an appeal. Now, at the same time, Ramaphosa has turned an old political ally to reset relations with the US, while talks of a cabinet reshuffle is being whispered in the background. Add people betting on the weather and a look at the largest meteor impact site on Earth right here in South Africa. And you've got a week that didn't exactly stand still. My friends, this is your daily Bagel Weekly Roundup. Now let's get into it. So Julius Malema was sentenced to prison, but the biggest story might be what happens next, because while the headline says 5 years, the outcome isn't final just yet. And depending on how all of this plays out, it could have some serious consequences on his political future, including his ability to remain in parliament. So you see, the court handed Malema a 5-year sentence for unlawful possession of a firearm, with additional charges including a 2-year sentence, which will be running concurrently, meaning he effectively faces 5 years in total. But you see, within minutes of the ruling, rather unsurprisingly, his legal team applied to appeal both the conviction and the sentence, which immediately pauses the real-world consequences of that decision. But here's the key part. Under South Africa's constitution, anyone sentenced to more than 12 months in prison cannot serve as a member of parliament, but only once all of the appeals are finalized. And so for now, Malema stays exactly where he is. The pressure only kicks in once all of his appeals fail, because that's when he'd end up behind bars and out of parliament. So for about 5 whole days, it looked like the worst of South Africa's petrol pressure was behind us. You see, oil prices eased after the US and Iran agreed to this 2-week ceasefire, which as a result eased tensions, and suddenly the outlook didn't look nearly as brutal. And so for us over here, that translated into real relief, easing the petrol price outlook in some projections by close to 3 Rand a litre. But the calm didn't last, and in hindsight, it was never likely to. You see, the ceasefire was built on a list of demands that was always going to be very difficult to agree on, especially around control of the Strait of Hormuz, this route that carries roughly 20% of the world's oil. And so reopen it and prices fall, but put it at risk and the market reacts instantly. And so now, just days later, talks have collapsed, and the US is now moving to block ships going to and from Iran's ports, effectively choking its oil exports. And so unsurprisingly, oil has already jumped back above $100 a litre, reversing last week's drop and putting that brief petrol relief back at risk. And so for South Africa, that means that the fuel story isn't over. We're just on to the next volatile chapter. So who is Rolf Meyer, the man that Ramaphosa has just sent to represent South Africa as its new ambassador to the US? Now, he's not a traditional diplomat. You see, Meyer was one of the key figures sitting across the table from Ramaphosa in the early 90s, negotiating the end of apartheid from the National Party side. And it was those talks that helped to shape South Africa's democracy today. Now, the two built a working relationship that has clearly endured, with Meyer later stepping back from the frontline politics, but remaining active behind the scenes, including speaking out during state capture and also contributing to early national dialogue efforts. And so all of this makes this appointment feel less like routine posting and more like a calculated move. You see, South Africa hasn't had an ambassador in Washington for over a year, and relations with the US have been under pressure, to put it lightly. And so Meyer's value here isn't just experience, it's that he's operated in moments like these where things could fall apart. And so the question now is whether someone who helped to negotiate South Africa's past can stabilize one of its most important and most volatile international relationships today. So I don't think most of us understand how few people actually decide how South Africa runs. You see, there's this small group of about 30 people who largely shape what gets funded, what gets fixed, and what doesn't. And right now, that group could be about to change. Now, that group is called Cabinet, the president's inner circle of ministers responsible for everything from Eskom to policing to whether Starlink should launch in South Africa. And so a reshuffle means swapping those people in and out. And in theory, it's about performance. If someone isn't delivering, their position should come under pressure. But in reality, it's also political. We're talking power, pressure, and positioning ahead of the next elections. And so if you've watched House of Cards, you'll know exactly what I mean. But now there's this twist coming from the Democratic Alliance. Its new leader, Jordan Lewis, is reviewing the party's own ministers inside the Government of National Unity. And he's made it clear that no one's job is guaranteed. And with 6 cabinet positions from the DA on the line, this isn't just a potential internal reshuffling, it's a test of whether the DA can actually prove it can govern while quietly shifting the balance of power within South Africa's government. Now, you can't control the weather, but people have found a way to start betting on it. You see, these prediction markets like Kelshi and Poly markets are turning things like rainfall, temperature, and snowfall into these tradable outcomes where participants take positions on what they think will happen next. And look, it sounds like some niche internet experiment, but volumes are picking up fast, with a single New York snowstorm recently drawing millions of dollars in activity. So at a basic level, think of it like a live probability meter. Each outcome, say, will it rain in Santon tomorrow, has a price attached to it. And as more people back one side, the price moves, effectively showing how likely the crowd thinks it is. And so the theory here is pretty simple. When there's a financial consequence for being right or wrong, people tend to be more precise. And so that pulls in not just these casual participants, but also analysts, weather specialists, and even AI-driven forecasting models, all contributing their own data and judgment into this single, constantly updating signal. And so here's where it gets interesting. Some early analysis suggests that these markets may already be matching or even outperforming traditional weather forecasts by better capturing human judgments and real-time information. And so that's why even some media giants have started integrating these market-based probabilities alongside standard forecasting. And so the question now isn't just whether people keep using these markets, it's whether they start reshaping our weather forecasts. And on to our bagel bite of the day. Let's see what you got. The question is, which country has the largest number of active military personnel? Is it A, the United States, B, China, or C, India? We'll give you the answer at the end of the show. Did you know that South Africa is home to the largest known meteor impact site on Earth? And it's not even close. You see, the Frederick Dome in the Free State was formed when a massive asteroid struck the area around 2 billion years ago. Now, the sheer scale of the impact it's actually just hard to grasp. You see, the asteroid was at least 20 kilometers wide, and it hit the Earth at speeds of around 20 kilometers per second, which is roughly 20 to 30 times faster than a bullet. And so at that speed, it didn't just land, it vaporized on impact, releasing energy so extreme that it reshaped the surrounding landscape and spread the impact zone across roughly 300 kilometers. But now this is where it can get a little bit confusing. You see, that circular dome that you'll see in the photos isn't the full crater. That's just the center of it. The original outer crater has mostly been eroded away over billions of years. And so what's left is the inner structure. And so that's why on the ground, it looks like you might just be in the normal countryside, farms, rivers, and small towns. But zoom out and you realize that you're standing inside the aftermath of arguably the biggest impact that the Earth has ever recorded. And as for that bagel bite, the answer is China, with over 2 million active personnel, making it the largest military in the world. Now, India and the United States both follow behind, but China's been at the top for years. And my friends, that's it for today's weekly roundup. Thanks so much for tuning in until the very end. Hope you guys had yourselves a fantastic weekend. Wishing you a cracker week ahead. Remember, be kind to one another, and we'll catch you all next Sunday for the next round of the good stuff. God bless.